A comedian whose audience laughed while it happened. A guitarist shot in front of his own crowd. A singer bitten by a cobra she'd performed with 100 times. 10 performers, 10 final performances, and every one of them ended in front of a live audience. Number 10. Tommy Cooper, April 15, 1984. Her Majesty's Theatre, London. Tommy Cooper walks out to do his magic act on a live ITV variety show, with around 12 million people watching at home. He was 63, 6'4", red fez, the most recognizable comedian in Britain, a man who'd built a career on tricks that went wrong on purpose. The bit that night was the magic robe, red silk brocade with a hidden panel in the back. Jimmy Tarbuck, the host, was crouched behind the curtain feeding props through it, so they'd appear from under the gown, as if by magic. Tarbuck described it later. A paint pot, a plank of wood, each bigger than the last, building to a stepladder he'd carry out himself, complaining it wouldn't fit through Cooper's legs. They never got to the ladder. Cooper dropped onto his haunches and sat there, upright, knees folded under him. The audience roared. He was lying on the stage making a sound like snoring, and they thought it was the funniest thing he'd done all night. A hand came out through the curtain and appeared to drag him backwards, which got a bigger laugh. It went on for nearly a minute before the show cut to a break. Backstage, nobody was sure either. Tarbuck assumed Cooper had slipped an unannounced pratfall into the act. It was the producer, asking Cooper's son about the gag, who was told his father had a bad back and physically couldn't do a fall like that. Then the broadcast came back on. The remaining acts performed in a narrow strip in front of the curtain, because Cooper was lying behind it. Donny Osmond was due on with 24 dancers, so eventually they had to move him. Liz Dennis said afterwards that he was out there trying to get laughs, while he could hear groaning and hands pounding on Cooper's chest a few feet behind him. He was pronounced dead at Westminster Hospital. Massive heart attack. Almost nobody in that theater knew until the news came through after the show ended. Number 9. Dimebag Darrell. December 8, 2004. The Alrosa Villa, a mid-sized club in Columbus, Ohio. Damage Plan had been on stage less than a minute. Darrell Abbott, Dimebag, was the guitarist. And before this, he'd been the guitarist in Pantera, one of the most influential metal bands America produced. He and his brother Vinnie Paul had built Pantera, watched it fall apart, and started again. A man climbed the barrier and walked onto the stage. He shot Dimebag at close range in front of the crowd. He killed 3 more people before a police officer killed him. He was 38. What makes this one land differently from everything else on this list is that nothing went wrong with his body. He wasn't ill. He wasn't old. There was no heart giving out mid-song. Somebody walked into the room and ended it, in front of people who had come to watch him play. Number 8. Tiny Tim, November 30th, 1996. A benefit gala at the Women's Club of Minneapolis. Herbert Corey, Tiny Tim, was 64 and had been ill for months. He'd had a heart attack on stage weeks earlier at a ukulele festival and had been told, plainly, to stop performing. He didn't. He was a man whose entire identity was performing, right down to the name. He'd been famous since 1968, when Tiptoe Through the Tulips turned a falsetto novelty act into a national curiosity. He married on The Tonight Show in front of 40 million people. Then the culture moved on and he kept working. Smaller rooms, smaller crowds, the same ukulele. He was partway through Tiptoe Through the Tulips when he stopped, turned to his wife and said he didn't feel well. She helped him from the stage. He died shortly afterwards. The last song he ever sang was the first one that made him famous. Number 7. Nick Menza, May 21st, 2016. The Baked Potato, a small jazz club in Studio City, Los Angeles. Nick Menza was playing with a trio called OHM. He was 51. Most people knew him from Megadeth. He drummed on 4 of their albums between 1989 and 1998, including the ones that broke the band worldwide. Retro Faces, Episode Script. Page 3. His career after that reads like a run of bad luck that never let up. He left Megadeth over a medical issue and was never invited back. He nearly lost an arm in an accident with a power saw. He played in a dozen bands and none of them found what the first one had. 3 songs into the set, he collapsed behind the kit. Congestive heart failure. He'd spent nearly 20 years trying to get back to where he'd been. He died at a 100-capacity club doing the same job he'd done in arenas. Number 6. Mark Sandman, July 3, 1999. Palestrina, Italy, an outdoor festival outside Rome. Mark Sandman was the frontman of Morphine, and Morphine did not sound like anything else. No guitars, a 2-string slide bass, a baritone saxophone, drums. He called it low rock, and it worked. 3 albums that mattered, a real following in Europe. He was 46. It was hot that night, over 90 degrees. He collapsed mid-song in front of the crowd. Heart attack. The band never continued. There was no lineup that made sense without him, because the sound was built entirely around the thing only he did. Number 5. Leslie Harvey, May 3, 1972. The top-ranked suite in Swansea, Wales. Leslie Harvey was the guitarist in Stone the Crows, a Scottish band with genuine momentum, managed by Peter Grant, the man who managed Led Zeppelin. His brother was Alex Harvey, who'd go on to lead the sensational Alex Harvey Band. He walked on stage, picked up his guitar, and touched a microphone that hadn't been earthed properly. The current went through him in front of the audience. He was 27, the venue was full. People watched it happen and could not work out what they were seeing because there was nothing to see. No fall, no warning, just a man holding a microphone. Stone the Crows tried to carry on with a replacement. They lasted a year. Number 4, Richard Versalle, January 5, 1996. The Metropolitan Opera House, New York. Opening night of Janacek's The Macropolis Case. Richard Versalle was 63, a tenor with a long career, singing the role of a law clerk. The opera opens with him climbing a ladder to reach a filing cabinet, sorting through old records. The line he sang at the top of that ladder was about how you can only live so long. He fell backwards onto the stage. Heart attack. The audience saw all of it. The Met stopped the performance and sent everyone home. Of everything on this list, this is the one people still tell each other about. Because it doesn't feel like something that happens in life. It feels like something a writer would be told to cut for being too neat. Number 3. Barbara Weldens, July 19, 2017. A church in Gourdon, a village in southwest France, during the Léo Ferré festival. Barbara Weldens was 35 and had been a professional singer for about a year. She grew up in a circus. That was her childhood, traveling, performing before she'd chosen any of it. She left and eventually came back to performing on her own terms. Her first album came out that year and won a Young Talent Award. She was by every account at the beginning. She collapsed mid-performance on the stone floor of the church. Cardiac arrest. Local reports raised the possibility of electrocution, and police opened an investigation. There were about 100 people there. Number 2. Irma Bule, April 5, 2016. An outdoor stage in Karawang, West Java, Indonesia. Irma Bule was a dangdut singer, Indonesian pop, huge domestically, played at village celebrations and open-air shows. Her act involved live snakes. She sang with them draped over her shoulders. She'd done it for years. That night, the snake was a king cobra. Partway through the second song, she stepped on its tail, and it bit her thigh. An antivenom was offered. She refused it and kept singing. 45 minutes later, she collapsed. She died on the way to hospital. She was 29. The crowd watched the whole thing and thought, for most of it, that they were watching the act. Number 1. Owen Hart, May 23, 1999. Kemper Arena, Kansas City. 16,000 people in the building for a WWF pay-per-view called Over the Edge. Owen Hart was 34. He came from the most famous family in wrestling. His father and all 6 of his brothers were wrestlers, and his older brother Brett was one of the biggest names in the sport. Owen was widely considered the best pure technical performer the company had. That night he was working as the Blue Blazer, a superhero parody character. The entrance was the joke. He'd be lowered from the rafters on a harness like a comic book hero, then get tangled and land badly on purpose. He'd done the stunt before. This was the first time he did it wearing a quick-release harness. The arena went dark, and a pre-recorded interview played on the big screens while he was rigged up 78 feet above the ring. The release clip let go early. He fell the full distance and hit chest first across the top rope near a turnbuckle. The impact severed his aorta. He was bleeding to death before anyone reached him. Almost nobody at home saw it. The broadcast was showing the taped segment, but 16,000 people in that arena watched a man fall out of the ceiling. And for a few seconds, a lot of them assumed it was part of the show, because everything in that building was part of the show. Jerry Lawler left the announce desk and climbed into the ring. Jim Ross went on air and told viewers repeatedly that this was not a storyline and not an angle. Paramedics worked on him in the ring. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. The event was stopped for 15 minutes.